Arizona baseball continues to roll and basically destroys the Pac-12 in its last season. Very, very good work. And what is next?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, very, very good news for Arizona baseball. Chip Hale is the man. Chip Hale has dealt with a lot of daggers, a lot of arrows, a lot of scurrilous assaults, and Chip Hale has emerged victorious. Arizona baseball was picked to finish ninth in the nation this year, or ninth in the conference this year, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? They did not finish ninth in the country. They finished much higher than that. They did a very, very good job. Ninth in the country, ninth in the conference. And they finished first during the regular season, and they just won the Pac-12 tournament. Now, let's talk a little bit about how we all got here. Now, listen, the first couple of years with Chip Hale, I don't agree with the theory by some that these were just spectacularly bad seasons because, again, you still made the playoffs. It wasn't like you went 13-47 or something like that. You know, that being said, you inherited a lot of good bats from the previous administration, but the pitching was absolutely awful. Dave Lawn was a bad hire. I don't know that there's any other way to put that. Dave Lawn was a bad hire. But what good CEOs do, what good head coaches do, is they realize the errors of their way, and they say, you know what, I am going to hire somebody better this second time around, and that was what happened. Now, going from Dave Lawn, who might have been a nice guy but was well past his peak, to going to Kevin Vance was a huge, huge boost for the U of A. No other way around it. And you watch the pitching staff this year, and they were absolutely fantastic. It was like night and day. And you saw that too in the regular season, and you saw that in the postseason as well. Arizona, was able to. In that game against USC, obviously USC gets some early runs, but then Arizona was able to hold. And I think in baseball, what you try to do is you try to minimize some of the real problems, and you're like, all right, let's minimize what we're dealing with here and then just try to get to that next step. That's exactly what Arizona baseball was able to do, and Arizona was much, much better for it. And the pitching, again, was fantastic. And what you have to do in college baseball is you have to be able to just stay because, again, when you're dealing with college baseball, it's a little bit easier to just kind of stay in the game, and then hopefully you can strike. Now, I don't know that I'm going to give myself full credit for the rally, but I don't know that I'm not going to give myself full credit for the rally either because Arizona also was able to get to the point where it hit. When you got into the seventh inning, it was like, all right. I said, all right, I sense a good inning coming on. And they scored a run. So, again, maybe they were motivated by my tweet to quote Nipsey Hussle and motivate, my friends. But odds are they were not motivated by my tweet, and they were actually just better than that. And they went through, and then in the eighth inning, tacked on some more, and then Arizona was able to hold. That was kind of the metamorphosis of the season. It just started out slow, but then when the going got really tough, you were able to rally and you were able to win some games. Arizona, again, did a very, very good job this season, and I think we need to give Chip Hale a ton of credit. I'm not the guy that goes through and is like, well, you know what, he didn't do well his first couple years, so therefore the job of a head coach is to learn. The job of a head coach is to know that, all right, I got to be able to get better in this area. I'm not good enough in certain aspects here, and Chip Hale did exactly that, and I think that was what's refreshing about that is that he was able to figure that out, and Arizona is much better off for it. Now, with what's that next step? A lot of people are saying yes. Great move great season by Chip. You won the Pac-12. We're going to get back to that in a second. But a lot of people are kind of like our good friend Jason Shear, our super regional or bust guys. And I disagree with it, but I'm all right with it though at the same time. We're going to talk about the bias that comes into play here in a second. We're definitely going to talk about that tomorrow. But I'm all right with that kind of super regional or bust. Even though I disagree with it, I think Chip is clearly the right guy for the job. Basically, that means you're going to be in the Sweet 16 at that point. If you're in the Sweet 16, then anything can happen. But the Arizona is probably going to get screwed a little bit here. They won the conference regular season and they won the conference postseason. And guess what? They're probably not going to host, which to me is absolutely absurd. They had the hardest strength of schedule in the entire nation. You need to keep that in mind. The entire nation, you won a major conference, regular season and postseason. To me, that should be the case. You shouldn't be behind 6 other SEC teams, or in softball, basically the entire field. That should not be the case. So that being said, you got to give Chip, like I said, a lot of credit here, because this is almost all Chip Hale's players. And a lot of people are wondering, how are you going to be able to recruit him? How are you going to be able to recruit? How are you going to be able to do? And he answered all those questions. Nobody could sit here and say, well, he was just really capitalizing off Jay Johnson's players. By the way, how's LSU doing? But he was not just able to capitalize on that. He was able to bring in the players that best fit his system, and he did a very good job doing it. I don't think there's really no doubt about the job that Chip Hale did with this squad. He was the conference coach of the year, and I think you can make a case that he should be the national coach of the year. And again, these were his players. So as far as what's next, pitching is going to carry this team, and we'll find out how far it can take them, especially when you're going into the super regionals, where unfortunately you're probably not going to host. It's stupid, but you're probably not going to host, and I think that is something that is probably frustrating for a lot of people, because it feels like there's a very inherent West Coast anti-bias, whatever the case may be, because this team does deserve to host, and it's absolutely absurd that they are not hosting. So we will leave it at that. But this was a very nice bounce back year for Arizona baseball. I also think too, you look at some of the players, he was able to recruit very well locally, from a guy like a Mason White to a Kane. I mean, Tucson's got some talented players, and if you can keep those players home and they're not the super elites, like, this is a bad example because he did end up going to college, but you're Ben Diggins types where and again, he wasn't Tucson, I get it. But, you're able to get, the guys that aren't quite that good probably to be drafted to come here for 3 years, because they're also probably going to be good local kids that you can count on, probably not just going to the highest bidder the way that a lot of college athletics, college athletics rocks and rolls this day. You get a little bit more of that hometown discount perhaps. And I think that's something obviously that, you got with Chip Hale as well, a little bit of a hometown discount. What I also like though about Chip is that he clearly wants to be here. I got tired of coaches that didn't want to be here. And that annoyed me a great deal, from somebody like a Rich Rodriguez, who had some mild success here at the U of A, but it always felt like he was going out of his way not to be here. He was always flirting with South Carolina, whatever the case may be. He clearly did not want to be here, and it showed up in his recruiting, and it showed up in his priorities, and that always annoyed me. Same way to a certain extent with obviously a Jay Johnson. Now again, I don't mind Jay Johnson going off to LSU. That is not a problem for me. But he was kind of a snake about how he did it. The biggest one obviously is Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch sold a bunch of crap, and then once Jedd Fisch got his first actual offer, Jedd Fisch was out, and then he tried to undermine everybody and their mother in the process. So that very, very much annoyed me. So that being said, I do think that with Chip Hale, he wants to be here. That matters to me. I think Tommy Lloyd wants to be here. Brent Brennan wants to be here. Now, again, that's not the end-all, be-all, because you still got to be good. I get all of that. But it annoys me with coaches that do not want to be here. And I think I'm always going to give the benefit of the doubt to the dude who grinds, and you see that he probably does not want to go anywhere else. For Chip Hale, I think that is a very, very obvious line in the sand that he wants to be here. He's an alumni. He's dealt with a lot of arrows and a lot of slings and arrows, and he came out victorious this year. Same with Tommy Lloyd. I think Lloyd is generally a small town dude who kind of likes Tucson, like when jobs come open and they're like, well, what about Kentucky or what about, things like that. I don't think he wants to be there. I think he wants to be able to go to a place like Bob Dobbs and be able to drink a little bit and not have 55 people in the media come up and saying, what are you drinking? When do you plan on coming here next? All of that stuff. I think that he likes Tucson. I think that he likes Arizona, and he's also paid enough that he's paid well, and he can also get the players that he wants. I think that's a big part of it when you're dealing with college athletics. Can I get the players that I need here at this stage? And I think with Arizona basketball, he can get that. And then Brent Brennan to me is the epitome of a dude, shout out Dave Hickey, that wants to be here. And I think Brent Brennan's just a good guy. There's nothing in Brent Brennan's background that indicates that he's snake oil, that he's not going to be able to, stay here, or that he's just going to make up a bunch of stuff. I think you could just tell that he wants to be here. And I think that's a big part of it when it comes to athletics. Who wants to be here? Who does not want to be here? And I think Arizona's got a group of guys that want to be here. So we'll talk about the next step tomorrow. We're going to preview everything because we will have Arizona's draw, and we'll be able, I think, to make a pretty good assertion of where Arizona is going to be going next. But before we get into Arizona football and a couple nice commits, why don't we first talk about Yahoo Finance? All right, now, for all the successful people out there, behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. We have been over this. We have established this many, many times. And the reason why is because it works. I always tell you the story about a guy in the media you could probably figure out who does not really like Arizona, or does not really like sports, but somehow he is a sportscaster. He is sitting there on his Yahoo Finance at pressers looking at it, and I can tell you by watching him, he's probably a pretty wealthy dude. So Yahoo Finance is helping him. It can help you as well. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance, my friends. Check it out. Yahoo Finance. Again, behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we got some really good football news. So, Jacory Croskie Merrit, my friends, Jacory Croskie Merrit. He has, this certainly merits a mention. He is back at the University of Arizona. This is obviously a very, very good, very, very good news for Wildcat fans because, well, he is good. He is going to be the best running back on the team this coming year, in my opinion. He is going to be the dude who I think is going to probably get 800-900 yards this year. And I think, get a lot of touchdowns. I think he probably gets 50, 53, 54, 55 maybe % of the carries. And I think they're kind of divvied up in a variety of other ways behind the other three. But this is the one dude. I think this is going to be the guy that's going to be your game one opening starter, and he should be because he's really, really good. There's a lot to like about him, and it's a great story. I mean, I talked about it on another platform, but he went to nobody thought he was eligible because he logged stats for 5 years, including his COVID year, and wanted Alabama A&M. Now, there was another guy, this Rico Putz, who stole some of this information and pretended he didn't. But here's what happened. He was, Jacory Croskie Merrit was having to share jerseys, at a smaller Alabama school. And the reason why is because that they didn't have any money. And that to me was that's kind of a wildly unprecedented story for me. They didn't really have any money. So these guys on the same position unit were sharing jerseys. So when the outsiders looking at it, they're like, it's 27. Yeah, he's getting all those carries. No, they were swapping jerseys. So a guy who was a staffer did a really, really good job. And he messaged. And he said, and they went before the NCAA and made the case. He said, listen, he said, that's not him. And they showed literally still videos off to the side of where that was not him. That was an awesome, awesome thing that he did because he didn't need to do it. But Croskie Merrit is fully eligible. He's going to be here. And Arizona, this is a loaded, dynamic running back room now at this point because between JCM, Kedrick Riscano, who we're going to get to in a minute, Quali Conley and Fam, Rayshon Speedy Luke. This is a very, very nice group of players, and I think it's a group of players that we should all have very, very high expectations for because, it's a good unit. Now, looking at the best running back units in the Big 12, you might say that Oklahoma State has the best. Okay, cool. But Arizona is right there, and they've got a variety of different dudes that can do a lot of different things. Between Jacory Croskie Merrit, it's going to be kind of your jack of all trades. Quali Conley, who's super solid. And, I mean, you can look at his numbers at San Jose State and see that, almost 8 yards a pop, almost 1,000 yards. Croskie Merrit, 1,200 yards, 19 touchdowns in New Mexico. And then we all know the explosiveness that Rayshon Speedy Luke has. And then Kedrick Riscano, who's one of the top 10 running backs in the entire country last year, went to Ole Miss, and he's here. And I would imagine you're a year away from him and Rayshon Speedy Luke from hopping in and being that group of hopping in and being that group of players. This is going to be a very nice little quartet or a little quartet. We'll see how it all plays out, but I think Arizona hit the ball out of the park with this, getting those guys. And in Riscano, you wanted a power back. Now, obviously Arizona had a great running back unit last year because you had Jonah Coleman, who's a beast. He's going to be really good up in Washington, unfortunately. But then you also have, Michael Wiley, who was very good, DJ Williams as well. You had 3 guys that you had to replace. And then Adam Muhammad, who I think is going to be really, really good up in Washington, obviously, as well. So you had to replace this. And all you really had back was Fam because Jordan Washington was not somebody that really fit into their plans. I don't think he's going to fit into Washington's plans either because I don't see where he's going to play, but I guess that's another story. Brandon Johnson I like a lot, but I don't see him playing here. So Arizona had to go in there and they had to get 3 backs. And between Riscano, Quali Conley, and Jacory Croskie Merrit, they did exactly that. And I think that's where this group is very, Alonzo Carter certainly showed his wares. I mean, he's got a reputation as being a very, very good recruiter, and he was able to get in a group of guys that will certainly be good for the University of Arizona, very much like what he was able to do. And I think you're going to see some more commitments on the horizon. You're going to have a quarterback here that's going to be committing that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. And, Brent Brennan, again, I think he's showing that, get me in here. Let me get a little bit of time. Got a nice tight end commit. You got a nice quarterback commit. We won't tell you who it is, but we'll talk about it tomorrow after it's obviously released. But this is going to be a really good group, and I think that he's showing as well that he's got a real feel for what how to win at this level, and that's something that I think takes some tact. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think a lot of people were wondering, so what's the deal at running back here? Alonzo Carter, I think, answered a lot of those questions because this is now a very, very good running back unit. And it's a running back unit that I think Arizona fans can look at and be like, all right, I'm going to be able to win a lot of games with this. And it's going to be a lot like last year. It's going to be a committee approach type situation where, it's guys are going to split carries. Guys are going to it's going to be some here, but that's kind of the way the college football is now, and there's nothing really wrong with that. That's just kind of the way the college football is, and this group I think is ready to do that. So the running back spot is set, and because you got these 2 dudes, and then next year you got Fam and you got Kedrick Riscano. Those are going to be your 2 backs. And obviously with Fam, you can do a lot of different things. With Speedy, he can catch passes, he can return kicks, he can do a lot of different things. So there is certainly that. But either way, big shout out to Brent Brennan, Alonzo Carter for what they were able to do. And I think you're going to see some more on the way. Tuesday is obviously going to be a huge day for Arizona football because they're going to be able to announce a lot of these players and talk about, who did what, who did who, all of that different stuff. So again, it's going to be, I think, a very good time for Arizona athletics and a lot of stuff that we're going to be able to talk about. Now, we're going to talk a little bit here about Arizona basketball coming up because we got a decision that is coming down to the wire. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, what is next? What is next, my friends? We are going to talk about Caleb Love. And Caleb Love he's going to take this one up to the last second. He obviously wants to play in the NBA. He's probably not an NBA prospect, and that is okay because at the U of A, you can make a lot of money being a awesome college player, which he is. This is not the day. This is not the times where, back in the day where you're like, well, I need to be able to get off so I can actually start making some real money overseas, whatever the case may be. That's kind of where we're at with Caleb Love. And I would expect him back. Things can obviously happen. Things can be fluid. I get all of that, though, the fluidity factor. I get all of that, but I would expect him to come back to the University of Arizona. And I think your roster is more or less set. You might look to add another player. I don't know, but we will find that one out. But he would be a huge get. Again, he wants to play in the NBA. And I think that he would prefer to stay in the draft. But sometimes if you don't have that option and you got this money dangling in front of you and another year to try to prove your wear coming back to a team that's going to be one of the top 10 teams in the country, I don't know why you wouldn't take that. And again, it's not like it's back in the day where you're like, man, I got to make some money to just start getting going here and whatnot. He can make some really, really good money staying here. And plus the coaching staff would love to have him. Between him, KJ Lewis, and Jaden Bradley, I believe that that's about as good a perimeter trio as there is in the country. Then you got guys after that as well. But all these good dudes are going to be announcing here shortly, and Caleb's gonna have that to make that decision here. And most people around the program believe that he is going to come back. Again, it's one of those things that when you got to wait until it happens, because anything can happen. It's all fluid, as the term says. But I think Arizona feels pretty good about it. And if that happens, you're looking at a top 10 roster. You're looking at a top 10 team. And I think that, with some of the players you got coming off the bench, it's a really good team. Again, it's not a perfect roster for sure. Totally get that. But I think that you can make the case that Tommy Lloyd did a very, very good job considering everything that happened. And what he's also showing too is that when it comes to the transfer portal, he knows how to recruit. He knows how to bring players in. He knows who's who. He knows what's what. And when he prioritizes a player, he gets them. And Caleb Love, I think, would be perfect going into the Big 12. Again, RJ Davis did the thing coming back to North Carolina. He and Caleb Love are kind of the same dude. And I think Arizona would very much benefit from another year of Caleb Love. All right, now tomorrow we're going to have an action-packed show tomorrow because we're going to talk Arizona baseball. We're going to talk about the seeding that they got, and I'm guessing that it's not going to be one that we like. Grr. And then we're also going to talk about a football commitment that Arizona football is going to have that I think will alleviate some concerns at a premier marquee position. And just a lot of other good stuff. And we'll start looking ahead too. We'll start talking a little bit Arizona football position rankings, units, all of that, because again, this is a really good time. Arizona, let's be honest here. Arizona smacked the Pac-12 in its last year on the big sports, from football to basketball to baseball. Arizona really showed this conference what was up on its last, in its last hurrah. And that's something that we'll all be able to kind of hold on to. Shout out Dave Hickey for those hires, by the way. Shout out Dave Hickey. Arizona softball is obviously in a different realm. We'll probably talk about that a little bit this offseason, what exactly you need to do, because that's obviously not perfect. But either way, very, very, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A. We are going to have an action-packed show tomorrow with a lot of moving parts. But as always, very much appreciate you. You have a great rest of your day, and we will talk with you tomorrow.